Namaste guys, this is Udai. Welcome back to UDS quickest movie reviews. Before we start the show, let us thank you for that huge response and the support that keeps us growing day by day. As always, we are back with some wonderful filmmakers and our reviews of their work. So before any delay, hit the subscribe and the bell icon if you have not yet subscribed our channel. Let's start the show. Welcome back. Let's start the show with our quick movies category. And in quick movies category, the very first movie that we are going to review today is Beast. Beast is a horror movie that is hosted on Taylor Lambert's YouTube channel. The plot of the story is very simple. There is this unknown scientist or a person who creates this monster in the woods. And there are this couple who are walking all alone in the woods and gets attacked. Frankly, there were no details given in the film or the credits, which again makes me think that maybe this complete movie was written, composed, shot by one person, Mr. Taylor, I guess. Coming to the story of the Beast was not properly composed, and there was no proper start or the end for the movie, which again makes me think that this movie is just a pilot or a test shot of something. So if this is a test project, I think it was not really well composed. Though I must say that camera was good, editing was too jerky and transactions were not that smooth. I'm sure Mr. Tyler can make much better films with Beast. It's kind of a Frankenstein category movie. The color tone of movie is really weak, and frankly it is a bit towards desaturated feel, which again for a movie like this, it is the color of the film that really enhances the factor of fear or tempo of the creep that you want to give. Music was good, but I think it was too loud. And not much dialogues, so it's okay. But then the sync between music and the camera movement was not properly managed. What he tried to do was absolutely understandable, but it was too predictable. We have seen a lot of movies like this, and audience are too smart these days to predict what the next scene is. However, I was surprised the way you have ended the film. It was too a drop. I think that could have been, I think that was not really expected to end there, because there were a lot of questions that were left in audience prospect that were not answered properly. And I think that really is a bit disappointing about the Beast. I'm sure Mr. Tyler will take all these suggestions or the review points what we have given, and I'm sure he's going to make a much better movie. And with that, at UD's quickest movie reviews, we rate The Beast a 1.5 star in our show. So the next movie that we are going to review is Hanelectow. Hanelectow is a Zimbabwe religious-centric fantasy quick movie that is hosted on It's the Boy YouTube channel. The movie basically starts with these two boys fighting with each other in that old classic Dragon Ball Z style of fight. That is, one side, one person is pushing a laser, the other side, the other person is pushing his laser, and there is a collision between these two, and you know that old Dragon Ball cartoon series which I still remember. So as I was seeing, I could understand that one of these guys or the boys is representing Christianity, that is Jesus, I guess, and the other person is representing Satan. How the fight ends is exactly what they wanted to show us, which obviously is a very open and understandable point who will win. The strongest point of the movie were its graphics, and they were pretty good too. However, the weak story and the predictable ending made even the 3.19 seconds too long to watch. Good effort though. I appreciate the whole team for working something like this, but I think they still had to work a lot on the storyline, the camera, the acting basically. But then I'm sure they are going to do that pretty soon. I wish them all the best. With that, we rate the film 1 star in our. The next movie that we are going to review is Recall. Recall is hosted on Alexander Money YouTube channel. Recall is built on one of my favorite screenwriting techniques, that is loops. As I always say, loops are very tough to write, but once you watch it, you will fall in love with it. The movie begins abruptly with this young girl all confused, scared of this guy. As she walks, she suddenly faints and falls down. When she wakes up in a dark room, her friend sleeping beside her, and is wondering what happened. And suddenly she notices there is one guy who is standing at a distance. Suddenly she realizes that this guy is trying to kill her. What happens next and how does the loop of the film works is the most interesting thing to watch. Written and directed by Mr. Alexander Money, Recall really is a very good visual. I was a bit disappointed with the sound, as most of the times I could not hear the actors' dialogues because either he was speaking too low or it was meant to be like that because half of the time she was sleepy and stuff, so her voice is too low. But then I think they could have given a clear cut sound for that. I'm sure she's sleepy and all, but then you still can manage to raise her voice so that audience can hear what exactly she is talking about. A very good creep was created by the makers. Very nice editing and camera work was up to the mark. I'm sure with a bit of a strong storyline, this team can make much better movies. Hope to see much better films from this team. We rate Recall a 3.5 stars in our UDS movie review. The next quick movie that we are going to review is Behind You. Behind You is a horror quick movie hosted on Showman's World Films. The film basically starts with this young boy who is playing a game. Cut short, he is sleeping and suddenly wakes up in a room all alone. As he is searching for his mother, he starts seeing a lot of paranormal activities. Or there is this paranormal entity that is trying to communicate with this boy. How and what will happen is the end of the story. Coming to the technical details, story by Mr. Saved Siddiqui and written and directed by Waqar Zahir Hussain Siddiqui. The film, as I feel, is a plot or an experiment to see how good they can shoot a horror film with a limited or very small mobile camera. Well, I'm sure they did a decent job in shooting the film. But if you're talking about scary film, I'm sure they still got to work on it. The editing was a bit loose and could be very sharp when it comes to scary movies. We still see the little lags when the creep comes out. For example, there is the scene where a hand is crawling into the boy's blanket. And when the boy lifts the blanket, there is this hand that is slowly moving towards him and suddenly grabs onto the camera. The sudden grab, what I showed here, was exactly what we were expecting. But imagine the sudden grab is like walking, stay, then suddenly slowly go hold the camera, won't work out. That sudden jerk or the chunk is exactly what scares your audience. That was a little slow with your camera. I understand this was because you were using a mobile camera and mobile camera would not fast enough to grab that particular point, but then in editing you could have done that. And next, coming to the color tone. Color tones you have used, especially that blue color tone, whatever you have used, were really burning out the feel of the film. Most of the time it was mushy and eyes were getting constantly tired when you were using this blue light. Well, again, this could be controlled at editing level or at the shooting level also. And then coming to the camera. Friends, you should understand, shooting with a lightweight camera is 100 times painful than shooting with a heavyweight camera, DSLR, whatever you use. Which again means camera which is much lighter will shake a lot. But in this movie, I really appreciate the cameraman who has taken a lot of angles with that camera, and I really appreciate and wonder how the camera was so stable, it was not shaky. If you see any movie that is shot on OnePlus or iPhone or any other camera, you see a lot of shake. But with this movie, and as I seen this movie was shot on a mobile camera, I must appreciate the cameraman who was giving us a stable frame as much as possible and some very good camera angles. And with all that, I think that behind you is a wonderful experiment, and with a little bit of update on your editing techniques and light techniques, I'm sure the next movie that you are going to shoot will scare your audience to the core. Wishing them all the best and hoping to see some very scary movies from them. Here at UD's Quickest Movie Reviews, we rate Behind You a 3-star in our show. The next movie that we are going to review is Bumps in the Attic. Bumps in the Attic is a quick movie that is hosted on Taylor's Mlumberg YouTube channel. The movie basically is about an attic, and it somewhere deals with a common fear that almost all of us has. Like Behind You, Bumps in the Attic is also an experiment to see how good the filmmaker is when it comes to scaring his audience with his visual. Why am I saying this? Because Bumps in the Attic has absolutely no story. The movie deals with this common fear that everyone has, that there is someone watching you. In this case, from an attic. Bumps in the Attic, directed, written and made by Mr. Taylor, who incidentally is maker of our first film, The Beast. If I'm not wrong, Mr. Taylor is constantly experimenting on his technique to understand how he can scare his audience. And this is the second film that we are reviewing this week. But what I wanted to suggest Mr. Taylor is all his movies are very abrupt, with a very limited screenplay. Sure, a nice thought, but with very limited screenplay, I think rather than those title cards, if he could have implemented a voiceover, it would be much impressive. It would have scared more of his audience. It would have enhanced the feeling of that horror that he is trying to implement, which we also saw in his other movie, The Beast. The only scene and the very impressive scene of the film is where all the lights are turning off and there is this face which is looking from the top of your attic, looking at the camera as if it is looking at you. That was really creepy and scary too. It really impressed me a lot. Well, I was expecting more creep and more story, but then it was a good hit. And all the best to Mr. Taylor for his next project. I'm sure he's going to make much more creepy and scary stuff. With all that, we rate The Bumps in the Attic a 1.5 star in our. Well guys, that brings us to the short film category, and the very first movie that we are going to review in short film category is Man in the Mirror, hosted on Psychopathic Brother Films, a YouTube channel. The story basically starts with this announcement of lockdown, global lockdown, and this person who is stuck at home and his daily activities like he is boozing, he's trying to time pass, he's listening to music, he's watching a lot of horror films, he's calling his friends, talking to them, basically day-to-day life of his during the lockdown. And during this time, he starts realizing that he's not all alone at his place. There is something or someone who are living along with him. And this paranormal entity starts taking over him day by day. The situation becomes so worse that this fellow is forced to go hide behind a sofa in order to stay safe. He does that, he falls asleep. And as he does that, he falls asleep. So asleep that he would not even notice that his friend has come into his apartment and she is waking him up. Now the ending is really mind-blowing. Is there anyone else in the apartment? Will they find the other person? Who is this other person? Why is he there? Who is this girl? What is she doing there? There are too many questions that you have to face while you are watching this film. Coming to the technical part, story, direction, camera, editing by Mr. Mohammad Jafar. Man in Mirror is one of the best lockdown psychological mind-blowing thriller movies that I have seen. The story and the screenplay are wonderfully composed. Apart from few repeated shots, I think every aspect of the movie is perfectly carved and perfectly executed. I'm not sure if they have used CG or the makeup, but I really loved the way those were given to the hero. Whatever it is, they sure wanted to give some creeps to audience, and I'm sure they did a great job in scaring their viewer. Appreciating the whole team, hoping to see more such wonderful films from the team. We at UD's Quickest Movie Reviews rate Man in the Mirror a 4-star and I. Well, next movie that we are going to review is Chakravyuh. Chakravyuh is a Hindi psychological thought-provoking film that is hosted on Jackass Entertainment's a YouTube channel. The story is all about this very careful, or maybe I should say OCD guy who is stuck at his home during the lockdown period. By the looks, what we see, he is very careful about the pandemic. He wears a mask. He very carefully sanitizes every single thing around him, and he is a bit pissed off with people who doesn't care about wearing a mask or being careful about the pandemic. So he constantly is shouting at people who are not wearing masks, who are not maintaining social distance, and every single precaution that we have to take during the pandemic. It is at this time a friend of his calls him and says he is coming to visit. At first, he is very disturbed that people are coming, but then when he sees his friends, that is, two of his friends who came to visit him, he is a bit unsatisfyingly inviting them into the house as they are recalling their old moments and their get-togethers before the pandemic. Suddenly, one of the guy starts asking, "Who is the third guy?" Our protagonist says, "The third guy, our friend who is sitting with us." The guy discloses that the friend who he says is dead 1 year back during the pandemic time. I don't want to disclose what happens next because that is the most interesting, intriguing, and mind blasting aspect of the film. What happened during the pandemic? Why is this fellow stuck in that date when the pandemic happened? Is he not coming out of pandemic? What happened that shook this fellow to the core that he is not ready to come out of pandemic situation? A lot of other things that you want to see. But yes, this is thought-provoking and really says the importance of social distancing, masks, and every other things that we take a bit light during the pandemic. The story is given by Aman Datta, Sayank Sengupta, and Pramod Datta. Direction, camera, and editing done by Mr. Aman Datta. Chakravyuh is a very nice, emotional, and wonderfully done subject. But when it comes to visuals, I think it started with a very shaky camera movement. As the movie goes on, the camera got much stable and with much accurate frame. The biggest drawback of the film is sound. Most of the times the sound was not balanced, it was too low, and most important are the serious emotional dialogues were not audible because of the low sound. See, to avoid this you can always buy small mics like Boya, which are $1,000, or maybe you can also use your mobile recording softwares where you can just keep your mobile in your pocket and you start talking, and individually your voice would be in your mobile. Later that can be implemented into the film after treating in softwares like Audition, Audacity, or any other Sony related softwares. That would really enhance the getup of your movie and the sound quality of the movie. In fact, with some much better sound, this particular movie Chakravyuh could have been to next level as it had so lot of content and it was really emotional. In fact, with better sound, Chakravyuh could have been much better movie as it had a lot of emotional content that people really relate. At the end of the day, Chakravyuh is a wonderfully done visual team to take care of those sound and a little bit of color correction in the next project. We at UD's Quickest Movie Reviews rate Chakravyuh a 3.5 star in our show. The next movie that we are going to review is stop motion short film hosted on Ek Paisa YouTube channel. Stop motion, as we all know, is the most ancient way of filmmaking known to human. And I'm really very happy to review a movie that is made on such ancient principle of filmmaking. The story basically begins with this young man who is stuck at home and is under huge pressure from his boss who wants him come up with a different kind of idea. Now he's not sure what to do, what kind of content does he work on. So he's constantly thinking of what to do. That is when our old radio starts, playing this 80s songs. And the RJ of this radio is talking about going back in time. And this triggers a new kind of idea to the young person. Without any delay, he runs, he takes out all his old toys, action figures, and stuff, and he starts making a stop motion block film. Well, that exactly is the gist of the film. Concept and dialogue by Mr. Anup Maurya and shot on OnePlus. Stop motion is no doubt a wonderful experiment. The movie shows how painful it is for a filmmaker to shot by shot compose each and every frame, then get back, stitch it together so that the audience will feel it seamless. On the other hand, we can also see how much love this filmmaker has got in making this film. I could see how much he enjoyed making this, and that, my friends, is filmmaking all about. The second you start enjoying your work is the second your viewers will start enjoying your work. Technically, the movie is wonderful, has given his soul to this film. But then, when it comes to audience prospect, technique alone is not going to work out. You should have a little bit of story. I was really missing the story, though there was a passive story going on. But then, when I was seeing this stop motion block, I was expecting something that would really blow my mind off. Apart from technique, I wanted to see a stop motion block story. I would love to see some more experiments from Mr. Anup with a little bit of story. Wishing Mr. Anup all the best. We at UD's Quickest Movie Reviews rate stop motion a 3-star in our show. The next movie that we are going to review is Paranormal. Paranormal, as the title says, is a horror short film hosted on Akshat Anand YouTube channel. The film is all about this young girl who is stuck at home and facing a lot of paranormal entities. She starts seeing a lot of shadows moving around, a lot of unknown activities happening around her. How she discovers these paranormal entities and how is she going to face is exactly the storyline of the film. It is a homemade film by Mr. Akshat Anand with some very good graphics and some creepy scenes. However, I personally feel that the movie was too long and very slow in narration. The editing is good, but however, when it comes to color, I didn't understand why I was feeling that the visuals were too vivid in color. The vivid color that you have applied to your visuals during the editing, I think were making your movie look more burned and were not really clear when we were watching the film. Frankly, after 2-3 scenes, my eyes starts straining when I see so much of vivid colors and so blushy visuals that were moving across the screen. I'm not talking about the paranormal entities alone. I'm talking about this girl also, who was not supposed to be vivid in the color, isn't it? I'm sure this is a very nice attempt with very good editing techniques, with very good acting. I also enjoyed thoroughly when the graphics were happening, but then because of the vivid colors and very predictable storyline, audience may disconnect from this movie. I'm sure you have done a great job. I really appreciate the efforts you have put. But then take care of the color, and a little bit of unpredictable storyline will always help to take your movie to the next level. With all that, we at UD's Quickest Movie Reviews rate Paranormal a 3-star in our show. So with that, friends, it's time we wrap up the show. As always, we tried our level best to give a genuine reviews of these filmmakers' work. I want you guys to watch each and every one of these films. The links are given in the description. Write to us what you felt about these films and what is your rating in our comment boxes. You may also write your suggestions or corrections that you want us to do in our program, which really helps us a lot. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe our channel to support us and to see more of our reviews. Till we meet next time, this is Udai signing off. Stay safe. Namaste.